Sentient beings. The first spark for this sermon ignited when I listened to Dan and Brenda Davis's sermon on ethical hunting. I nearly did not come to church that morning, as I thought it would be listening to the Davises espousing their right to shoot and kill harmless animals in the name of food or sport. However, I'm glad I did decide to attend that morning, as they forced me to see the other side of a coin that I previously thought only had one side. Many of life's big issues are a bit like that. We get blinkered, we fall on one side, and we forget there's often two sides to each story. So in the same vein, I hope you can put aside any pre-held beliefs you may have and listen as I try to explain why Unitarian Universalism, animal rights and vegetarianism are such good bedfellows. After saying that, this sermon is not so much about animal rights, it's about human responsibilities. After all, if you think about it, teaching a child not to step on a caterpillar is as valuable to the child as it is to the caterpillar. Of the 7 Unitarian Universalist principles that we are meant to affirm and promote in our daily lives, 4 of them can be construed as being in accord with the thrust of my vision. The inherent worth and dignity of every person. Why limit this principle just to people? Why can't we simply extend it to animals? Justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Again, why not include animals within the remit of this principle? The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Likewise, how can the world be at peace and have justice for all when billions of animals are forced to lead barbaric and tortuous lives before they end up on our plates? Respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a small part. I'm going to repeat that one because that's the crux of what I'm talking about today. Respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a small part. This principle does not need to be modified or construed in any way to fit in with my thought processes. This principle is very important to me and is the one I can most easily put into practice on a daily basis. I like to think I respected that web of existence long before I'd even heard of Unitarian Universalism, but it certainly was good to hear that a religion gave such prominence to this type of concept. So, how did I arrive where I am today regarding my thoughts on animal rights, human responsibilities, and vegetarianism? I started off, like almost everyone else in this room, I suspect, as a meat eater. Culinary Britain 40 years ago was dominated by the meat and 2 vegetable idea, and my family were no different. On my dad's side of the family, my grandfather was a butcher, with all that that entailed, and on my mother's side of my family, my grandfather was a cowman for 40 years. So I come from a heritage rich in consuming animal products. My dad in particular was a vowed meat eater and remained so until his dying day. My journey to vegetarianism was a gradual, step-by-step process. It started with my decision to cut out red meat from my diet. But I did this with a view to my own selfish health reasons, rather than for any kind regard to the animals from which it was derived. I can remember being in my kitchen about 30 years ago back in South Wales in the UK, preparing a Christmas meal for my parents and my brother. My brother had been a vegetarian for many years, and I knew my mother enjoyed vegetarian food, but for my dad, it wouldn't have been Christmas without a turkey. So, therefore, I bought the smallest turkey I could find and proceeded to prepare it for cooking. But it dawned on me, handling the raw turkey and thinking about the life it had probably led, brought me to the realization that from that day onwards, I was going to try to be a vegetarian. I would be lying if I stood up here and said that the smell of hot, crispy bacon has not tempted me over the years. And I'm certainly not zealous about my vegetarianism, as I will eat soup made from a chicken broth, or if you're kind enough to offer me a quiche, I won't pick out the little specks of bacon, I'll just eat it all and enjoy it. So, actually, I go a step further than that. I don't eat anything with legs apart from crabs, which technically classifies me as a pescatarian, as I am a fish-eating vegetarian, which is a pretty good compromise, I think. It means I still get my protein and my other nutrients, but I'm not eating anything with traditional legs. I think you would agree with me when I say that pets enrich our lives. We treat them like part of the family. We feed them, we pay their vet bills, we let them sleep on our beds at night, and then we cry when they sadly die. I used to own 2 cats, but as any cat owner will verify, cats don't have owners, they have staff. I think man's capacity to love and bond with another species is one of the joys of being human. And as Mahatma Gandhi once said, and I quote, "The greatness of a nation can be judged by the way its animals are treated." The greatness of a nation can be judged by the way its animals are treated. I don't think he was only referring to our pets. Do you? Why is it we classify some animals as companions and others as dinner? And by virtue of that distinction, we feel entitled to treat farm animals with cruelty as long as it reduces the price we pay at the supermarket. Subconsciously, I think we've made a semantic distinction between some animals and others. Some we love, and others we not only butcher, but torture as well. We forget they all have something in common with us. They all draw breath from the same source as we do. They are all parts of the earth community, and as someone wisely once said, all God's critters have a place in the choir. Imagine you are at a dinner party. Mouth-watering smells are emanating from the kitchen, and your host brings a pot of steaming, savoury stew to the table. After eating several mouthfuls, you ask your friend for the recipe. "I'd be happy to tell you," she says. You begin with 5 pounds of well-marinated golden retriever meat.
Oh.
You would probably freeze mid-bite as you think about the meat in your mouth. Why is it that we react so differently to different types of meat? It's not because there is much physical difference between them, it's because our perception of them is different. We love dogs and eat cows, despite both being sentient beings with real feelings, preferences, and consciousness. Not only do we perceive meat from different animals differently, different humans view the same meat differently. For example, take a Hindu. He or she may have the same response to being served beef as an American would to being served dog meat. Some Europeans routinely eat horse meat, and other cultures eat a whole range of animals that the typical American would not put near his or her mouth. We choose to classify animals as pest, prey, pet, or food, and our judgment determines how we relate to them and how we treat them. This is something I discovered while researching this sermon, which was pretty shocking. There are laws in every state prohibiting cruelty to animals. However, and it's a huge however, animals destined for human consumption are exempt. In practical terms, it means that if an animal is raised with a view to gleaning its eggs, its milk, its meat, its skin, or its wool, you can, without any restriction, subject that animal to conditions that, if you applied to your family pet, could easily land you in jail. That blew me away when I read that. It really did. One of my musical heroes is Paul McCartney, and he's been a lifelong vegetarian, sort of inspired by his late wife Linda, and he once said the following: "If slaughterhouses had glass walls, everyone would be vegetarian. We would feel better about ourselves and better about the animals, knowing we're not contributing to their pain. So true. It is only through our ignorance, our reluctance to see, or willingness to look the other way that the livestock industry is able to continue its barbaric treatment of animals. The factory farming industry goes to great lengths to hide their ghastly procedures from our view because they know that basically the general public are essentially animal lovers and would turn against eating their products in our millions if the truth were widely known. I'm not going to turn you off, it's getting close to lunchtime, and I'm not going to describe all the gory details about the lives that factory farm animals lead before they end up on their plates. Suffice to say, if the same treatment were handed out to humans, it would be deemed the animal equivalent of what innocent humans suffered during the Holocaust. And for those of you that I have provoked into thinking more about your food choices, I recommend watching the movie Food Incorporated, or alternatively you could read the book Why We Eat Cows and Love Dogs. Our incongruent feelings towards different animals is factory farming's trump card, and they certainly know how to play it. They go to great lengths to create a disconnect between the way they treat animals and our purchasing decisions in the supermarket. The establishments that produce the bulk of our meat are mainly invisible, and that is no accident. They are often located in remote areas away from prying eyes, and their trucks are often sealed and unmarked. We don't see what is going on because we're not meant to see what is going on. A friend of mine recently took her son to Temple Hill Farm near Lucas, just down Route 15 in the other direction. Her son became enamored with one of the cows in the field there, apart from its wet tongue. When told that people actually eat cows' tongues, he was shocked and really surprised. Her son, along with many other children and adults, had previously made no connection between animals happily grazing in a field and the nicely packaged portions of meat found in the supermarket. Now, prominent Unitarian Universalists from our past have been on the vanguard of great social changes. UUs were active in the promotion of women's suffrage and women's rights in the early 20th century. UUs were prominent in the 1960s civil rights movement, right up until today, when UUs are at the forefront in promoting an end to the discrimination against gays, lesbians, bisexual, transgender and queer people. Apparently that is not a derogatory term anymore. They've embraced that term, and that's why I'm allowed to use that word, the word queer, this morning. I do not see why UUs of today cannot take the lead in promoting compassion for all animals, even if it means we all pay a little bit more for ethically raised and slaughtered animal products. Unitarian Universalists have a proud history of standing up to unjust social issues, and I just see no reason as to why we cannot apply ourselves to combating the propaganda from the factory farming industry. We have changed hearts and minds before, and I can see no reason at all why we cannot do the same with animal advocacy. UUs have been proud to stand up against injustice, oppression and cruelty. Surely these goals should include our attitudes towards animals. From the moment we are born, we become engulfed within the power of the meat producers. We are fed Gerber baby food meat products, followed by enticements to eat Happy Meals at McDonald's. Did we ever question our parents or our teachers when they told us that eating meat made us strong and healthy? I don't think I did. So after saying that, I don't think that indoctrination and sublimation are two strong words to use when describing the power and influence that factory farming industries have upon us. But if cruelty to the animals is not sufficient for you, think about it from another angle. How about the environmental effect of eating animal-based products? They directly cause deforestation, biodiversity loss, soil erosion, and greenhouse gas emissions. In fact, the cattle on this earth produce more CO2 emissions contributing to global warming than all the cars in the world. That's a pretty amazing fact that I also learned from the research into this sermon. Also, consider your health. Do you really want to digest hormones and antibiotics? Because that's exactly what you're doing unless you're buying ethically raised meat. I believe this is a good compromise for those who are still yearning for our meat and animal products. The other benefit of eating these products is that they are raised locally, resulting in lower transportation costs and support the local economy. So that idea, along with the idea of possibly adopting the Meatless Monday idea, is also a great place to embark on a new relationship with the meat in your diet. But I firmly believe if you are attempting to change your eating habits, then a slow, gradual process will yield more success for you than suddenly deciding to go meatless overnight. That was certainly the case for me. I could spend the next 5 minutes quoting various statistics, but to underline my argument, I'm going to use only one. It takes 2,000 pounds of grain to produce enough meat to feed one person with enough meat and other animal products for 1 year. Alternatively, if that person ate the grain directly, it would take only 400 pounds to feed them. So in other words, it takes 1/5 of the amount of grain if the animal is bypassed from the equation. The animals of this world exist for their own reasons, and it's very arrogant for man to think they were only put on this earth for us to exploit them for our own ends. They were not made for humans any more than black people were made for white people or women made for men. And as the former president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, Reverend Peter Morales, once stated, the realization that how we treat animals is an ethical issue grows out of this spirituality of compassion and awareness of connection. There is no reason compassion should stop at human beings. Of course we should be concerned with the treatment of animals. This is a spiritual, this is a religious issue. His statement was reinforced at the 2011 UU General Assembly when it approved a statement of conscience on ethical eating. It called on UUs to eat ethically by becoming aware of the way that our food choices affect the health of ourselves and of the planet. And just like Emily the cow in the story that I related earlier, we have been surreptitiously herded into a lineup and taught how to follow a course that's been laid out for us. But also like Emily, we can choose to break free from the crowd. In conclusion, I don't expect to have converted you to a vegetarian diet this morning, but I do hope some of you at least pause for thought the next time you are about to put a steak in your shopping basket at the supermarket and the wide-ranging effects of continuing to eat a meat-based diet. And I'm going to leave you with the following thought from Martin Luther King Jr. Never be afraid to do what's right, especially if the well-being of a person or animal is at stake. Society's punishments are small compared to the wounds we inflict on our soul when we look the other way. May your God go with you, and let it be so.